you. Yeah.
Firstly,
You go.
yeah. Everybody, apology. I hate always when my clients give me evil eyes and stuff. They're like, come on. But you guys can give me evil eyes today. Guys, honestly, I'm not even going to make an excuse, but there was one driver that went missing, and there was 7 trains that were cancelled. I left. I was getting here an hour and a half before, and I've just so you're not normal setting up and all this like Hogwarts. You come here, you're like, wow, but it wasn't like that. So
Shows you're human.
but thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it. There's most probably usually people trickling in anyways. No worries. Just to give you a quick introduction first, we've got him obviously, and I'm sure most of you saw that online when you booked here at the front. Sorry to put you on the position. But we've obviously got with us today. Before I start this event, this is your opportunity to ask questions, to learn from somebody. I'm pretty sure everybody knows who that man is on the board. Someone who works with that person, to learn. Be respectful, obviously, but please, utilize this to ask whatever questions you can, because this is the kind of opportunities I'm trying to bring, and I'll introduce everything about what the brand building meetup is about. But these are opportunities that I want to bring to you, be either startup founders, or thinking, or maybe even in the middle stage. The goal of these events is never to have of a here necessarily do whatever. The people partner with, they all have the intention of being able to help you guys to get to where you want to be, and that's the biggest principle. So that's a massive thing for me. Got a couple of things lined up before we go into the main event of today. I'll give you a quick introduction first. So my name is Kiki. For any of you that is it brightness all right? Can you see? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's not.
The light just for
Thing is,
the bit.
if we them, then I've got my very expensive cameraman and photographer, so it's going to go to waste unless anyone wants fair enough. To get them from where they are to where they want to be. That's the easiest way to explain brand strategy. It's the thinking process behind and before building a brand, or even maybe a couple of years into it. That's essentially in an easy way in terms of what I do. But the format I do is events like these, and one-to-one individual group interactive workshops is the style I do it at. So that's exactly what I do. And I also am the founder of a branding and design agency, 9 Designs. We're running 6 years. It's our birthday on Sunday, so it's really cool coming up. So that's a bit about me. I'm on a personal mission to build 1,000 positive impact brands. Everything about me is all about positive impact. Everything about my agency is all about positive impact. What do I mean by positive impact? It means making an impact towards society, towards the environment, and towards the economy. Positive impact can be on 3 fronts. I've got a belief that profit and impact can coexist. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Companies can make a lot of money, which every business wants to do, no doubt, but you still can make an impact with that as well. Everything from this event that you will see is going to be fun, engaging. Normally we do insightful workshops like exercises. We're not doing any of that today because it's a main event, but also it's the last event at the end. To be honest, I am absolutely knackered from this year. So we're not getting involved in any of that, but there will be some engagement. I'm not going to keep you guys just sitting there like, it's a bit boring at the moment, whatever. That's not going to happen. But what you'll get at these events, if you come regularly, now, I must admit, these events actually started out once a month. We did it last year. It did start going to a bit of gaps in between. We're very, very busy. I'm very, very busy, but we are going to do these 4 times a year now. So every quarter, these events will run. It's much more sensible. I got really excited at the beginning, going to do 1 a month, but hey, there's still consistency, but we're going to bring even more quality for that. So you'll get industry experienced professionals like today, obviously, that we'll have at these events. The main big thing for me is impact, is allowing you guys to learn, to make an impact, to take action, and to be able to go away and actually implement things. That's the big thing for me. I don't want this to be just this sort of, load of information that you go away with like, shit, what do I do with this? This has to be impactful for your business and brand. That's why we specifically bring guests here who can provide that type of value. A supportive community of businesses building their brands. The best story I got 2 weeks ago is that there is a secret WhatsApp group from this community that I'm not even in, but a couple of people have made their own WhatsApp group and started collaborating with each other and working with each other, and I thought that was absolutely phenomenal. I'm talking about people who have different expertise helping each other to elevate. I'm a massive believer that this is not the era of competition anymore. We're not in the industrial age. This is an era of collaboration. There'll be so many more companies that are looking to collaborate with each other rather than compete and cut each other's throats off. Because the example I give is, imagine if Apple and Microsoft ever worked with each other. Imagine how much money that they would make. They're always fighting, but if they collaborated and ever did something, it would go bonkers, honestly. So the last thing is we do provide speaking opportunities. So if anybody does have a business, anybody does want to do a pitch or anything like that, we provide opportunities to come and speak. So if you want to practice, you want to get some feedback, let us know. We'll give you a chance to be able to do that. So impact. We have raised over £212 for this event. I just want to give a massive round of applause. Thank you so much. That is the biggest amount of events. That's really amazing. For every single event, we pay for everything. This is all our cost. The event hire, our photographers, videographers, absolutely everything. There is zero cost money that is taken out of that. 100% of what the donations go. We send emails of the donations after. Everything goes to the two charities at every single event that we do. Today, we have actually got someone from Charity Water, Santi, to join us. If you give us a couple of minutes of your time to explain about Charity Water so everybody finds out what you guys do, because we purposely pick charities that are actually making an impact. They're not the ones that are putting their money into their pockets, but the ones that are actually driving change. So it'd be lovely if you could just give us a couple of minutes intro about Charity Water and about yourself. Yes, thank you. Feel free to come up on stage. Give a round of applause.
Thank you so much. Hello, good evening, everyone. It's really great to be here. This is my first time at an event like this. So I'm Xanthi. I'm from Charity Water, one of the two awesome charities supported here tonight. If you want to find out more about us, if you want to reach out to me, please do. Xanthi Gash on LinkedIn, or take a look at our website. But basically, a really quick rundown is we were set up back in 2006 by our founder, Scott Harrison. And neat little link, he's actually got a Diary of a CEO episode. So that'd be a great one to check out, two birds with one stone. So he set it up to try and tackle the global water crisis. But obviously, there are lots of water charities out there. He wanted to sit apart from those and do something different. And his kind of main focus was being a charity that people could trust, being a charity that had transparency, and being a charity where, if it was possible, 100% of every donation goes to the water project. So that's often what people remember us for, is our 100% model, which is actually quite unique for charities. Every single penny that the public donate goes straight to a water project. This is made possible because we have a group of generous philanthropists and gifted that funds our operations and our overhead. And so with our transparency, we also have this GPS system where whether you've donated £5, whether you've donated £500,000, you can track exactly where your money has gone. And you can find the GPS coordinates on Google Maps, see the water project. It might have your name on it if you sponsored the whole thing. So we just like to keep people involved, make sure they know where their money's going, feel part of the community. And another key part is that we work with local partners so that we're using their local expertise and the fact that the communities there trust them and feel comfortable working with them, because obviously it works for some people, but we don't sort of want to swoop in and come in with a bit of a saviour complex trying to solve a problem that we perhaps need a bit of local expertise to help with. So effectively, that's a bit of a rundown of Charity Water. We've been going for years in the US. We're only about 6 years old in the UK. So brand is actually a big thing for us. And obviously, I don't need to explain why. We're in the right place for that. Thank you so much for the support. It's really great to be here. And yeah, please do reach out. Always happy to chat to people if you want to know more about us compared to the rest of them. But really looking forward to the rest of tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Honestly, that's what I love, when you can track where your money actually is spent, unlike the government, right? So that's the best thing. So, let's get into it, right? That's me and Holly there, by the way. You know me from my doodles if you follow me on social media and stuff. But going into it, right, so we're going to go into a quick personal brand chat. I'm not going to keep you waiting for too long because obviously we're going to get started with the panel talk. But it fits very well with what we're going to be speaking about with Holly, right? Personal brands is a massive thing, and I'll get into it in a second. But then we'll go into an intro from Holly herself, and then we'll go into open Q&A. We've got a couple of questions that are already pre-lined up from people from LinkedIn, from different social media places, and then we'll open it up to everybody else to go and give you a question, ask you questions as well. And then we're going to open networking, chat around, speak whatever, chat to everyone, do whatever you like. A couple of house rules: collaboration, get involved. That's the best thing always. I'll keep lingo simple. But it would be great if you keep it. So if you're an expert in the field and ask me a question, for the audience and for the sake of myself, most probably, keep your terminology and stuff simple. It's easy for everybody to understand and it's most effective. Respect everyone. Everyone here is going to be at different levels. Some people will be at startups, whatever. Just make sure that you're all, on good terms, basically. No market arts. So I normally say this. We had a couple of people, actually we haven't had one in a long time, but people that literally come here to try and full sell their products to other people. They see it as a place to come and pitch to everybody, hand out their business cards. If any of you do that, this is a place that I personally want people to feel like they're getting value from coming here. So we don't want any of that happening. So we call them marketers. We'll name and shame them because we've got little eyes and ears around the room that will point them out. But anyways, we don't have any lanyards and equipment space. Don't worry about that. And we need to have some fun. Utilize, as I said, the people, myself, Holly, everyone that is here, all the expertise in this room, and most probably people in the crowd as well. Get speaking to people. You don't know who you meet. I'll give you another heads up. My best business deals in my agency have come from people that I've met in person, not people that I've spoken online to. So that's just something to put out there. So our social, they're going to come up in a second as well. But this is the only plug that I'm going to do this whole evening. Please post on socials, because the more, I'm going to use Stephen's line. Stephen's line is, the more you support, he says on his podcast, if anybody knows this, is the more you support the podcast and share and like and subscribe it, the better guests we can get. The same applies for here. The more you guys will share it, post it across your socials, the better guests that we can get at these events. But that will come up in a second as well when we go on the panel talk. So let's get into it. So I really wanted to speak about the power of personal branding. And I always like fun things, game things. We're going to do a bit of a game, but you're not going to get out of your seats. You're going to stay seated for today. So what we're going to do with this game, each slide is going to feature a well-known person. You have to shout out, just shout it out. The first thing, what do you think they do? Right? Make sense? Yeah? So, test run. Or J.K. Rowling.
Author.
Cool. So obviously an author, so we heard that, of Harry Potter, which is the biggest thing. Steve Jobs?
Apple. Innovation.
Okay, cool. Co-founder. I'm going with titles, just as a guess. Apple, yes.
Host. TV show host. Philanthropist.
Mogul.
Nice. Host, producer, philanthropist as well, founder, investor, all these stuff that isn't on here. Awesome. And these are companies that founded, also invested in, all sorts of different, the others have as well.
Dragon's Den.
Apprentice.
Okay.
West Ham.
Hey, there we go. Vice chairman. Honestly, if there's anybody to really follow in terms of a story, Karen Brady's story is phenomenal. She was the managing director of Birmingham City at 23 years old. She was under so much scrutiny for being a female as well in that role. If it was a man, I wouldn't have been blinked. But her story and how humble she is, obviously the apprentice is all larged up and stuff. If you listen to her story, she's obviously now the vice chairman of West Ham United. Absolutely phenomenal. Listen to her, you will learn so much from her. That's a big one. I'll tell you in the second one, we're going through all of these.
Google. High tech.
Cool. It's getting trickier. CEO of Google.
Well, not really.
Entrepreneur.
Millionaire.
Pregnant.
Mother.
Yay! CEO, founder, and artist, obviously. Savage, Fenty, and Fenty Beauty. This is my favorite brand, if anyone knows what that is. No, I'm joking. No, it's a lingerie brand, that was a joke. Gosh, you don't know your brands, do you?
Disney.
But anyway, okay?
Disney.
Elon Musk.
Okay, fair enough. Gosh, you need to go
CEO.
spectators. I'm joking. Yeah, Disney. Disney, and obviously, whilst he was there, they acquired Lucasfilm, Marvel, and Pixar. So a big one.
Rings the bell.
Silence.
Silence. No one. Just
Give us a
some
clue, give us a
random
clue.
Google picture.
Founder of Airbnb.
Airbnb. Yeah.
Oh, Jimmy Choo.
Yes.
Oh! That was my hardest. Come on, put it there. Jimmy Choo. Wow.
Is that Zara? eBay? No.
Are they related?
The best chicken in the UK.
Yes, yeah.
Funny story. So, Fernando, this guy on the left, his name is Fernando. His son's name is Nando, so he named his restaurant Nando's. Simple. Keep it clean and simple. Nando's has got nothing to do with chicken otherwise, right? So,
There it is.
Barry.
Entrepreneur.
I bet
Dragon.
you shut that straight away. Come
Dragon
on.
today.
I might cut you for that
No.
now. I'm joking. Oh, it's my thing. Obviously, started social chain. Direct CEO, investor on
Yeah.
Fuel, right? Big, quite big
Investor.
investor, and on Dragon's Den as well. I absolutely love Steve on Dragon's Den. He's like always complete fresh perspective, but amazing. Cool. What did you realize? Any thoughts?
Some
What much-
people
They're
are
all
their brand.
entrepreneurs.
So say that one. Let's take some of them first.
Some people are their brand.
Some people are their brand. Oh, sorry, what's your name?
Tarun.
Taru. What did you say? Sorry.
They're all entrepreneurs.
All entrepreneurs. Okay. Anybody else?
They all had many different roles.
They all had.
Many different roles.
Okay. Anything else?
Do they go like the non-traditional route into their role?
Non-traditional route.
Non-traditional route into their role?
Oh, I'm not too sure to be honest, but fair enough.
No, I'm just asking.
Are you asking me the question?
Yeah, that was a question.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I have no idea. That was a good question, but I mean, I can try and get you interviews with them. You can ask them. So, some people we recognize instantly, right? This was not a good idea. Some people we recognize instantly, and we can explain what they do, and we knew their brands instantly. We shouted it out without a doubt, right? Some people we had no clue about, but every single brand we recognize, right?
Yeah.
Was there any brand that anyone didn't recognize there? But there was people that we didn't recognize there, okay? Why? Now I'll give you that thought. Any other thoughts?
Brand's always bigger than the person. Brand is like,
Not always. Some people aren't their brands.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
depends on the single person if they want to be associated with that brand or not.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
To do with the marketing, if the person wants to be marketed alongside their brand.
Cool. Fair. Personal brand. That is the difference between why we recognize some of these people and associated them to their companies and why we didn't. Whether that's out of choice, whether that is their marketing flaw, whatever it is. And that's what we're going to be quickly covering now. So a clear definition of a personal brand. So a clear image or a perception. So the brands, I go with the definition of a brand as a perception. It summarizes it overall. But the clear image or a perception of you formed by your unique combination of skills, achievements, experiences, and your personality that you want the world to see. So that's a good sort of nice sort of thing. So the way you want people to perceive yourself, that could be authentic. For some people, it isn't authentic. For me, I try to keep it as authentic as possible. How I am in here is pretty much, my wife's at the back, you can ask her, I'm pretty much like that at home. It's exactly the same. But some people aren't necessarily like that. And obviously they've got a certain persona to be able to build their companies and build their brands. That's a good, quick, clear definition. Now, the case for, I'm going to go through three main big things for the reason why personal brands are really, really powerful, and then we'll get into why we're speaking about this in a second. The visibility that you get from a personal brand, right, is absolutely like it's next to none. It's absolutely crazy, right? So, guys, people will relate to you more. They'll understand what your company does. You know, even if your business goes to absolute south, if you've done enough to build your personal brand, you have got one of the biggest assets that you could even think of. But let's say if you had a company brand and you did everything possible to build that, goes down, and you didn't build anything a personal brand, and like the Airbnb founder, you didn't know who he was, that's how the difference is, right? If people don't know you, it's really, really hard to be able to build stuff. So, second reason, human connection. Now, I'm building my personal brand at the moment, and to add to what I was just saying, and to lead into this, I've run my agency now for 6 years this year. We've had our best year, the year just gone, and the year before that was pretty decent as well. But the only difference, the only thing that changed was that I started working on my personal brand. All of this that you're seeing was only built in the last year and a half. The influence, the traction, people knowing me, etc. Not saying this is to blow my own trumpet. I'm saying this legit, that this is what it has achieved. The difference, we were posting content on our 9 Design Agency page, doing all sorts of marketing, doing everything. That flick of the switch was people know me, people know my face, people getting connected to me. This is what I get you to start thinking of. This is what the conversation we're going to be going into in a second. So you get more direct and more emotional connection with the audiences than a company brand does. You might have a couple of questions popping up, and then hopefully they'll get answered in a second. Trust and credibility, the biggest thing. Anything you go into business, any business, the big premise is trust. You need to have trust with the person you're buying from, and the person who's providing you the service also needs to have trust in you as well. It's the biggest thing. I can do business with somebody that I've literally met for 5 minutes, who had a good conversation, versus somebody that I've been talking to on socials, on LinkedIn, whatever, for over 12 months, because it takes time. But in person, it's completely different. People can see through, people can see authenticity, but they connect with you. It's that credibility. These are the 3 big things that I just want you to bear in mind in a second. Is it essential to build a personal brand? So before I go ahead, what I'm saying here now is that there's a lot of us thinking about how to build our businesses. There's a lot of us thinking how to build our company brands and stuff. But what we're forgetting to put out there is our face. So I just want to add that in before I keep going on more. But is it essential to build your personal brand? It is essential. But when most people do it, they won't do it. So that makes it easier for you. Because most people aren't doing it, it makes it really easy for you. There's a quote from David Goggins, if you know him, the athlete and runner and stuff. Yeah, really hard guy. But he said, it's really easy to be the one that sticks out these days, because most people don't do things. Or the actual quote was, most people are weak. I don't want to call you weak. But yeah, that's literally as simple as it is. So if you're actually genuine about your business and about your brand, you'll be really look aftering what you're putting out in terms of your face. Huge thing. There are a couple of people in here as well that have got really strong personal brands, and I'm sure they could vouch for it as well. Now, what I want, this is going to be the quick thing that we go, because we're going to go into a Q&A. I'm going to go straight to the action points. If you're thinking about building a personal brand, you want to take it seriously, take a picture of this. This is what you can do, literally actioning on very quickly to start building your personal brand. Now, this is not saying you don't work on your company. This is saying along with your company, you start to do the additional things. So now I'm going to just take some good pictures, put you in the content. So it still can be your company. I know some great businesses here that came to the previous events. They still run under their company name, but they put their face in their content. They speak in front of the content. They share their products. They have good character. That's what people buy from. People don't buy because how great your products and services are, or the features. I'll give you I don't really like using big companies as examples, but I will in this case. Apple's ad campaigns. Has anybody ever seen an Apple ad campaign?
Yeah.
Who has? Have they ever spoken about features?
All the time.
No, they haven't.
What do you mean? What
So-
they're thinking?
What do they do is they show a story.
Yeah.
They show people utilizing their devices, how their device comes a part of their life. They don't say A7 microprocessor, they don't say this megapixel camera, and they just list out loads of services. Does that make sense?
They do.
Not
In like another video, but in the main video they wouldn't.
Not in TV. I'm talking about TV ad campaigns.
Okay, yeah, sure.
yeah. So not in like you get social media ad campaigns,
Yeah.
like a TV ad campaign.
Okay.
The point I'm trying to get across, the main point I'm making, is that it's not your product, it's not your features that sell. It's even when you ask the people that do the biggest business deals, big corporate companies, it's not about how do I build, a good reputation. It's who do you know? Who does that person know you? And do they trust you? Are they credible? That's how the biggest business deal is done. This is a really serious conversation today. I'm so sorry. But I normally make it fun, but the reason why I'm saying this is because I really want you guys, whatever business idea, whatever you have, is to really make it impactful. And this is the most powerful thing right now in building a personal brand. We saw some of those examples, right? Now, it's not to say some people might choose, might not to. Some people might be in a position like the Airbnb founder was, right? He's built a big company, fantastic, great. But if you have to look at this from a reality perspective, are you going to get 50 million? If anybody's sitting here, 50 million rounds of Series A funding, fair buys, go buy and do what you need to do. But I'm talking about the businesses like Stephen Bartlett, who built from scratch. If anybody follows Stephen Bartlett back from the beginning, I'm sure Holly was there, she'll share about that experience. He was posting on socials, showing up with his face, his content. He was doing that from the beginning, whilst he was building his agency. That's why people got related to him. They understood what he is, what he does, what companies he runs, etc., etc. So, put you in your content, bring your personality forward. I mean, I'm not going to go for all of these. You're taking a good picture. Meet people in real life. The best networking, the best people that I've done business with, are the people that I've actually met in real life. Jump for opportunities. Some of these will be out your comfort zone right now. This is like a good list over the next 12 to 24 months of just very easy things that you can do. Get yourself some podcasts, get used to speaking, create your own personal brand strategy. Personal brand is the biggest thing that is pressure right now. So I'm going to leave you with this, and I want to go into our conversation now with Holly. Anybody can take your business idea and brand. Anybody, right? Does anybody disagree with that? Does anybody think they've got a very secret idea that nobody else can copy? No? Anybody can take your business idea and brand. It's replicate it, make it more cost efficient, outsource, and run a better business than you. But the one thing that they can't take is you. That's your unique thing. I feel like a motivational speaker today. That's the difference. They can't take you, right? Unless they kidnap you. In which case, if you built a personal brand, you're going to talk a lot like me, and they're going to give you back anyway after, so you're pretty much safe either way. So, quick recap, reflection. Personal brands, they'll give you massive visibility, right? They'll help you create a human connection with your audience. They'll build trust and credibility, and they'll make you unique. 4 simple things, 4 things that will powerfully, and this is how simple I'm keeping it today, because I guarantee you, and I promise you, in the next 12 months in 2024, if you start showing up with your face in your business, whichever way you think of doing it, I promise you, you will be in a much better position 12 months down the line. That I can personally guarantee you. It's as simple as that. So, and ensures you're unkidnappable. That's the main thing, of course. Cool. So, I'm going to stop talking now. Gosh, that felt so serious, man. Anyways, we're here for Holly. I'm here for Holly. Everybody's here for Holly. First of all, can we give a round of applause to our Cool. I'm going to put you right in the limelight, and then we're going to sit here. I'm going to turn the lights on. Zach, want to get mic'd up? Yeah, perfect. We'll go into Q&A. Anybody's got any questions, stuff, we'll go into Q&As in this whole session, basically. Did you find that valuable, though?
Yes.
Yes?
Very, very.
Good. Inspiring, motivational?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Should I become a motivational speaker?
You should.
Don't? Oh, gosh. Fair enough.
No
Yeah.
wisdom.
I'm not taking the hate, I'm taking the love. Fair enough. Cool. Right. Before we get started, I think I might.
So, yeah, I just want to ask,
Yes.
do you have a handout of that? Oh, yeah, so obviously I came in late.
A handout of the action steps.
I know you last minute, remember?
All the slides.
You can take a picture?
Yeah.
Just, let me just turn the light off for you as well, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure.
I'm chipping away now, so I can't really do it yet.
Okay, but if you register through website, I also send a copy of all the slides to everybody as well. So you get a copy of each slide. You each run that down inside.
Be amazing.
All good?
Yeah, can I get that receipt running around as well?
Yeah. Stephen, did you press number 2 on that? That's it, that's perfect. Thank
Sorry. Yeah, but.
Pro stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun. Super proud activities, but.
Feels like so
I'm so glad I messaged Zach and I was like, I promised Carly you're coming already, so you better come. And he came. So
Oh, amazing.
Oh, one on your back, I've been trying to get to this village.
It was so fun at the end. It was like,
That was the one. Yeah, it was great. It was like 5 days.
I haven't seen
Alright. No worries. No worries. You feeling good?
The cardboard bit and stuff from.
Gonna work.
Sorry. Really, the weather's been so cheap there. Yeah, it's not quite new. No, it'll be where everything is convenient.
What is this?
It's true that like the restaurant, you know, higher rates of like very expensive there, and then I was like, oh my goodness, basically in a restaurant are like 10 to 12, and everyone's like, no. I was like,
You chill if you want to stay seated. That's
I click this.
yeah, that's great.
you're gonna go.
oh, yes.
Zach, I feel like I'm like arrested here. Cheers, thank you. You all good? Right. Okay. Little break. Let's go back to it. Right. So, first of all, I want to thank you in front of everybody for coming. If anybody doesn't know, Holly actually messaged me about this event to come and present. So this is out of her complete love for the event, and also wanting to be here to be able to give you guys value. And that was a big thing that we spoke about. But I'm not gonna give the mic over. Please give an introduction. I'm pretty sure everybody knows who you are.
Yeah.
Take it away.
No, thank you so much for having me. So I am Holly. I'm Steve's personal social media manager. So I am in charge of his content through from strategy, ideation to publishing through to reporting. So I look after his LinkedIn, TikTok and Instagram. So it's a total of, I think we're on 6.3 million followers across all of them, which is insane. Yeah, been with it for about 2.5 years now. Started when the team was tiny, and now we're on 20, 25, 28 people, give or take a few. But yeah, just thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. And for me, I'm just really looking forward to sharing everything that I've learned and helping you guys where I can. So please, if you've got any questions, ask away, like nothing's off limits. And yeah, go for it.
Awesome, cool. We ready? Yeah, come on. Jeez, there you go. Right, so what I'm going to do, I've got a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
Couple of from people that already sent questions in, the ones that beat everybody to it first. But we'll start off with those, and then we'll go out to everybody and get the questions rolling. I'm going to hit you with the first question straight away. Is social media good or bad?
Honestly, how you use it. Like, there are moments, because my job is on social media, I feel like a lot of people's jobs, whether you have signed up for it or not, is potentially on social media. I just have to have, for my own personal like sanity, if you like, really strict boundaries around it, like how I run my own personal channels. So it depends how you are. Like with me, because we're so full on during the week, and sometimes that spills over into like holidays or weekends or whatever, I'm really strict with myself. Like on a weekend, I try and put my phone away. Like I try and not look at it. I try and really be careful with that, because I know that actually when things are overloading my brain, I'm not at my most creative, and Steve has posts to get out. Like I've got to get the post out. So it's kind of a situation where I need to personally have those like boundaries within myself to make sure that actually come Monday, I can think clearly. But I honestly think it depends how your relationship is with social media. Some people are fine always being on, and I know Steve is very much one of those people, and that works well for him. But for me, I need to have that separation, and I think there's nothing wrong with having that separation. I still enjoy my job hugely, but I need to have that switch off time to allow my brain to recalibrate come the fresh week.
I think especially like as you're right in the midst of it, you can get like completely, like imagine trying to do his and then do yours as well at the same time. It's like,
exactly,
it's crazy.
It's hard.
So just as a follow-up question to that, do you enjoy it then?
Yeah, I enjoy it hugely. It's because it's changing so quickly, and because it can feel such a daunting industry, because you're kind of told to be online 24/7, you need to promote this, like do whatever. It can feel, but I'm such a big believer in whatever your message is, whether that's from a personal brand point of view, whether that's from a business point of view, whether that's from just a creative point of view. Use it, make it work for you. Don't feel like you have to squeeze and mold yourself into social media, because people will be able to tell that as well. You know, there'll be moments where I'll be writing a post or whatever it may be, and I'll just be like, I don't think that's on brand for Steve. Like I don't actually, having now read it, I actually don't think that should go live, and I won't put it live. But I'd rather not have a post go out than have a post go out and it actually not sit well, because the audience can notice it, and that's devaluing them, and that's devaluing yourself as well. So I think it's a balance. I think, you make it work for you. Try not to let it control you, which is easier said than done, but it's important.
Nice. This is a big thing for people that post on social media. A lot of people are after virality. So obviously follow accounts, getting loads of views, etc. In your opinion, and this might have been a question from the audience someone's like wanted to ask, but what's more important, virality or quality of content?
This is really interesting, because I've spoken about this before, and it kind of leans into the whole jumping on trends and trying to capture that like viral moment. But again, I'll use the Barbie movie as an example. There's no way I could have jumped on that trend, because Steve and Barbie, like, they don't, that doesn't make any sense.
It could have worked.
But in his eyes and his brand, it didn't mesh well together. But that was an example of me being like, okay, this doesn't work from a brand point of view, so I'm not going to do it. Yes, was it a key moment in a lot of marketeers in the creative industry? Yes, but it doesn't mean you have to follow it. Again, I think it comes back to that point of what actually is useful for your brand, and actually what you think your brand should jump on. So I think I would always rather do quality over going viral. And I think there's also something to be said for a lot of people like, how can I jump on the trend? But actually those trends were started from a company, from a person, particularly on TikTok. So why can't you start the trend? You don't have to follow a trend. If you've got like a health and wellness business and actually you want to create, a trend, then go for it. There's actually room for you to take that first step and actually do it. So if you're thinking, okay, this is what's going live on TikTok right now, or this is what's doing really well in the market, but actually this doesn't really appeal to me, there are ways I think which you can tweak it to make it applicable for you, or just make something brand new yourself, because there's no rules with it. You can play around.
That's massive. I think, especially where you started off as, like coming from a strategy background as
Yeah.
well, like it's alignment. Like, does it align with Steve's values? Does it
Exactly.
align with what Steve wants to, you know, have that his brand perception, his
Yeah.
brand awareness? And the fact is that it didn't, right? So his audience are a particular, his audience like the kind of content that he does, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden if it's like random out of the water that doesn't align, then it loses, I guess, it's a risk of the brand image. Right?
Exactly, and people know that. People aren't stupid. Like, I always try and think that when I'm doing my job, like, I'm equally a consumer of this content. Would I engage with it? Is it useful to me? Is there a shareable element? Am I giving value? Also is another really big thing. And if I'm not answering any of those questions, I won't post it. It just won't meet the criteria to go live. So I know that's easier said than done, but I always try when I can and take myself out of that moment and actually try and remember that, hang on a minute, if I didn't work here, if this wasn't my job, would I be engaging in actually what I'm doing? And if the answer is no, then it simply doesn't go out. But I think it's important to have that framework in your mind, because otherwise you can be finding yourself jumping on so many different trends and spreading yourself so thin to try and get a viral moment. But actually, it might be devaluing the brand, and actually, it might be not what your brand is set up for. So I think you have to try and make it work for you.
It's really, really nicely put. It answers another question that one of the panelists one of the guests actually sent in was, you know, how do you distinguish what trends and stuff that you do take on? But I guess it's kind of answered in terms of saying that what aligns with what you're doing, what you're looking at.
Yeah.
You know, you go with that. And I like what you said there. Why don't you create your own trends? Like,
Yeah.
you know, think of outside the box rather than following everything else that's been done.
Exactly, because everything started from a person anyway. So, okay, yeah, you might create a trend yourself and it might not take off. It doesn't matter because you tried doing it. Like, I always think, like, there's no rules. Like, everyone's making it up. Like, TikTok didn't exist like a decade ago, and there'll probably be a new social channel that's not even around now. There'll be a new one next month and the month after that. You know, there's no harm in trying something. So then at least you know, because otherwise, if you're not trying it and if you're kind of waiting for the perfect trend or the perfect viral moment, I just don't think it necessarily comes. And you'll find out what your audience likes as well by actually creating something and trying to do something.
Awesome. I've got a question here from Samuel on LinkedIn. Samuel's asking, do you use any automation tools for social media? And which ones, if you do, which ones stand out?
Yeah, so we use
We're getting
Brandwatch.
Stephen's secret tips here.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. So we use Brandwatch. Brandwatch is great. It's potentially bigger if you have, well, it's potentially better if you have a slightly bigger audience. But another one that I recommend, I've used it before, not with Steve in a previous role, is Sprout Social. That's actually really, really good. So in terms of keeping all the different pieces of content together and having a system and it being orderly, I use Brandwatch. But I think, again, it depends what works for you. There are so many out there. Later's a really good one. But it just depends on what works for you. A lot of them, you know, made into apps, etc. So it's super easy for you to actually use. Another one, if anyone really wants to get step up their LinkedIn, so Shield is amazing. So LinkedIn analytics aren't the best. They only give you a few, if any. So for Steve's personal brand, if I don't use Brandwatch, it will be Shield, and essentially it is a complete report that it gives you. You can change the timeline, you can change tags, you can filter it however you want to filter it, but it tracks everything. So you'll be able to see, so I'll be able to see if I post something and potentially if there's a spike, I'll be able to see, okay, why was that? I'll be able to go and find the post and work out, oh, okay, it's because I spoke about this or people really resonated with this. So what you were saying about your personal brand, it's a really good tool to use to actually find out what the audience is resonating with. Yeah, it's like a go-to. I'd highly recommend it.
Awesome. What's the most unexpected? Okay, fair enough. This is fun. What's the most unexpected lesson you've learned from your time with working with high-profile individuals like Steve and Bartlett? Do you want me to repeat that? Is that good?
No, that's fine.
Yeah. Unexpected lesson.
Yeah, Steve changed his mind like the wind. Yeah, and he changed his mind all the time. And when you're working for a person and it's not like a company or anything like that, it's even tougher then, because obviously it's him personally and no one can replicate that. But I think being adaptable is something that is so crucial, particularly in social media, but for working for a person as well. Because ultimately it's his decision, yes, of course, like there are so many of us working on the podcast and I'm on his personal brand on social, but ultimately he is the face of it. So there needs to be an element, I always think, of being, adaptable and actually moldable, and things change so quickly. So I think that's the big thing for me. I just kind of take, do what you have to do and actually like learn the lessons, but then also as well fully prepared for him to be like, okay, we're changing this, or this is what we're doing, because he's an inventor, like he's literally like a crazy scientist. So there's always new things that are floating around. So you have to kind of be prepared for that element of change, essentially.
Nice. I want to ask you personally, in your work and everything, what's the most fun thing that you've done?
Oh, what's the most fun thing? We're lucky. We get to go on some really lovely trips for the podcast and also as a treat as well. So one of the ones that we went to was Ibiza, and we went last year. I think it was last year, and it was so fun because Steve, obviously being always on pretty much all the time, it was so nice to see him in a different environment and also have that time as well. And we're really lucky, the team is really lovely and it's a great culture in the sense of everyone genuinely gets on. I feel like whenever I say that, so I was like, there must be someone you don't like. It was genuinely not. I think for us, it's those moments, and because we're going so fast and we rarely stop, it's kind of those special moments, whether we're going out filming for the podcast or whatever it may be, but it's within those times that actually we'll come together and we'll learn more. And particularly someone, for like me, my role is writing as him. If I don't know him, I can't do my job. Mm-hmm. So when we're going on trips or whatever it may be, or hanging out or just being in the office, the more you get to know him and, the more you get to know about the podcast and about the company and about his vision, it's just easier it is for you to simply do your job. So yeah, that's a lovely perk, but it does make my job a lot easier.
Nice. Last question before we open up to everybody else.
Yeah.
How important is personal brand to you, and how important do you think it was to Steve having worked with him?
My God, Steve would be nowhere without his personal brand. Like, literally nowhere. Like, he says that all the time. Like you were saying, if he didn't document everything at Social Chain, he had a YouTube, I think it was called Daily Steve or something along those lines, and he was filming every single day at Social Chain and like filming on his worst days or whatever. And I think a lot of people are scared of getting the camera out because they're like, oh my God, how am I actually going to look like? Is this going to be embarrassing? But actually, you're filming it. It's almost like how I liken it to, it's like he put his diary online, which is obviously ironic given the title of the podcast, but it's so important. It is so important. And actually, creators and brands and whatever industry you want to go into, whether that's social media or whether that's something else, like what you were saying, you're working actually with the person, you're not working with the brand. And actually creating your personal brand is so important. I think a lot of people find it really scary. It doesn't mean you have to be on every single social media app. It doesn't mean that you have to post like ridiculous, amounts of content. You just find what works for you. But it's so important. It's so important. And, social media is such a saturated market now, and creating is such a saturated market. So you need something to help you stand out, and it's that level of connection. But yeah, everything, in my opinion, from his success now is from a strong personal brand.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's open up to audience questions.
Far away.
Hand went up. Raise hand first.
I know that I asked you briefly over here, but obviously Stephen Bartlett is not an overnight success story. He's been doing this since he was 18, but in the last few years, he's really blown up. Yeah. So what do you think has really contributed to that over the last few years, that some takeaways that we can implement into our strategy?
Yeah, I think it's a few things, but I think on the podcast, so we have a bookings team, and essentially how the process works is that they will do research on the guest, they'll prepare a kind of package, if you like, and then that will get sent to Steve, and he'll say yay or nay if he wants to do the interview or not. And it will have to meet a certain criteria, but criteria in the sense of if he thinks the audience is going to enjoy it. There are things that are in his head that I presume he's ticking off essentially like a list. So from obviously the podcast being called The Diary CEO, from going, to having CEOs and business leaders, entrepreneurs, to now spanning to having like Jada Pinkett Smith, to having, all different realms of people that are leading the space in tech, that are leading the space in health, that are leading the space in wellness. It's the reason why I'm saying this is because he's jumping into the different pools of people, he's jumping into the different markets. So he's no longer like, he wasn't particularly doing this at the start, but he hasn't pitched himself into like a tiny little hole. He's now branched himself out to so many more people. So even you might watch the podcast and you might love the business stuff, you might hate the health and wellness stuff, but there's something in there for you. And I think that's what it is. So it's about finding, obviously, your key audience and who your people are, if you like, in the community, but then he's branched out into so many other layers of communities, into so many different realms, and actually that's where the growth is. It's not putting yourself into a tiny box where actually you can only reach a certain amount of people. So yeah, I mean, that could be applied through, if it's your own personal brand, if it's a business, it's finding those new avenues to reach new people, because ultimately that's kind of what you need to do to keep growing, really. So that's what I think has contributed to a huge amount of his success.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah.
don't worry. Evening everyone, my name is Chantal Martin. So my question to you, Holly, is basically, what strategies or tips could you give us to implement our personal brand?
Mm-hmm.
And what have you learned from Stephen about his personal brand that you could, strategies from when he started? For those that start from scratch with their social media,
Mm-hmm.
and also those, so start from scratch is one of them,
Mm-hmm.
and also those that are not familiar with social media, because there's a platform of Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm talking about those two because those are the two I use, but TikTok, for anyone in the room that uses TikTok as well. So it's a loaded question. There's a lot of it. So thank you so much.
No, all good. Grace actually has kindly come along with me, who's our head of experimentation, who's sitting in the back. She's going to hate me. The reason why I'm saying this is because one of the parts of your question, I think it's the second question that you asked, in terms of what tips I can share from, is, so Grace's job is literally to help the team conduct as many experiments as we can. Like, quite literally, we do so many each month per team. And we're like trialing so many different things to figure out if something works and if something doesn't. And if something doesn't work, it does not. And then we know, actually, from my brand caption, let's just say, I know, okay, I'm not going to be using that caption again. Like, that didn't work very well. So that's something that I would like really, really implore you to do. Is just to figure out yourself, like, per week, 3 new things that you're going to try actually for your business or for your personal brand or whatever it may be, whether that's like changing the caption, whether that's posting at different times, whether that is even changing like the font on Reels, just making those tiny changes, write down the results after that, and then you can see, because if there was a massive increase, then amazing, like you'll do that next week. If it's crap, you won't be doing that next week, but you'll know. So you're only going to know by doing it. And I think that is what's been so important for Steve's personal brand, and like something that I've really learned as well. And he's so hell-bent on it, because you need to work out what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you, because you might be like going along about your journey and actually kind of realize, hang on a minute, my reach is decreasing, my engagement's plummeting. It's not, you can't work out why necessarily, but if you're trialing new things, you'll actually understand what's working for your audience. And then when you have new ideas, you'll be able to implement them so much more confidently, because you've got the results to prove it. So that's a big thing that I would say. Sorry, what was your first question? I can't remember.
Sorry, that was a lot. The first question was about strategies and tips.
Oh,
So I know Kiki, I hope to say your name correct.
Yep.
Gave us some tips about putting yourself first
Yes.
and your letting your face be your brand. And then there was another one about 2-word branding. It said Chris Do. I don't know what that meant.
Yeah, just to give, so anyone took a photo of it, you just search on Google 2-word brand Christo. So 2-word brand, like for me, I'm the fun brand strategist. It's a bit like opposite because strategy is normally boring. So 2-word brand is something you can use yourself to sort of describe yourself and introduce yourself. So for Chris, if anybody doesn't know Christo, he's one of the biggest people in the design industry. His is loud introvert, so it's complete opposite. Introverts aren't usually loud. So how do you introduce yourself as someone to go, oh, what? Search it on Google. If you took a picture of it, just search on Google, you'll find all the info. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the 2 strategies. So
Yeah.
strategies that we can implement and tips.
it's going to be kind of different for everybody, but I think you need to work out simply what is your personal brand. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be anything grand, but you have to know simply what it is and what value you're offering and how it's unique to somebody else. That could be something small. That could be a take on a different point of view. That could be, you could be in a different situation, but ultimately you need to work out what's standing you apart from everybody else. Because like I said, it is a saturated market, which is not to put anyone off, but it's just to really stress the point that you need to know how you're making a mark in the industry, and you need to know what value you're offering someone. And that can just be like providing like humorous content. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, and it doesn't have to be anything scary, but you need to know what the point is of why you're posting. And then I think from there, I would say, it's annoying to say, but it's true, try and be consistent with it. That doesn't have to be consistent 3 posts a day, perhaps 2 posts per week, but actually try. Because another example that I can give that is the podcast. When I first started, we were just putting out a podcast. I can't even remember what day it was. I think it may have been a Monday, but it was just 1 podcast per week. And I remember Steve was saying, actually, when you take a break, he could see on the results and he could see on the data that actually views and reach literally went down so much. And that was because we took a break from it. Whereas when you're consistent with something, people show up and people expect it. So when I post on Steve's LinkedIn, it's normally at 7, it's normally at 11, it's normally at 3, it's normally at 6 per day. People kind of know that. So people know to actually expect something in the morning when they've just woken up, or they're in the commute, potentially before lunch, in the afternoon, on the train home. You get into kind of people's psyche, you get into a bit of a routine. So I think that's something else that's really important, is the consistency piece. But like I said, sometimes you say that and it scares people off because they kind of think that they have to post so many posts per day, and it's actually just finding what works for you, what is consistency for you.
Thank you, Holly.
So,
I'm going to go, Simon. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, Holly. Thank you. You've answered a lot of the questions, so I've got one I'd love to ask you, which is that in small and medium-sized businesses, I'm a sales mentor, so a lot of what I say to my clients is ultimate number that really matters is the one in your bank account. And so we kind of try and encourage them not to be worried about how many views you get or reshares. So the question I want to ask you is, what is your ROI for when you're posting for Stephen? What is it? Is it reach for him?
it completely differs. This is where it kind of comes in from what I was saying about Grace's role and the experiments, because when I write a piece of content, whether that's on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it may be, each post will have a different objective. It might be one that we're testing at the minute actually is I'm basically, you'll probably notice it, but I'm basically putting in Steve's caption. It will be something like comment your thoughts below or comment your opinions or whatever. And that's an experiment I'm testing to see actually by me writing a call to action on there, explicitly saying comment your thoughts below, people actually do it or not, versus actually me not writing that at all and seeing what the comments are. So for that example, it's comments. For another post, it might be reach. For LinkedIn, a big one is impressions, because normally that you'll find that once your impressions literally shoot up, then all the other metrics lead with that as well. And the more impressions it has, the more chance it's being pushed out to your network and other people's networks as well. So it's a bit of an annoying answer, but it differs per post. And I think there's nothing wrong with saying actually the objective for this post is one thing and then changing it to the next, because it's not always going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
And with most apps, there's 3-4 different key metrics. So really, it's not feasible to kind of say, okay, on Instagram, how I'm going to measure if this is successful or not is by reach, because actually, potentially on reach might be really poor on comments. It depends what you want to measure. So I think understand what you want to measure and what's really important for your business, because it might be that comments are way more important than likes, or it might be the other way around. You don't necessarily need to have all the metrics up for it to be a success. It just depends on what you would like to measure.
Really interesting. Thank you for sharing.
Sorry?
Cool. Is there anyone on this side that had a hand up? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ping pong back. So let's take that one first. Oh, Anya, let's take Anya's first and then we'll come back to you.
Yeah,
Go for it.
so you mentioned that Steve is going into several subjects and he's inviting guests from all walks of life, right? So if that increased his reach and his number of subscribers, then there's probably a certain format that he's sticking to, whereby the guests' subscribers are subscribing to him.
Yes.
So I did have experience with somebody who kind of invited guests and her reach did not increase at all because she kept refusing to say a few things that we told her to say, and in the end her subscribers went to the guests. So if the guests benefited, but she absolutely did not. So I was wondering, how did Steve achieve that, and if he has any kind of things that he like, do not leave the stage without saying this and this and this. Does he have those things?
No, he writes a few pointers, I would say, on his iPad before the recording, and he jots a few things down, but it's never scripted. He's literally just having a conversation. He's also annoyingly good at creating like an open space for people to actually be comfortable in what they're saying. Often than not, he'll just let them talk and then he just won't really say anything. But that's just to kind of make that person actually feel comfortable in what they're saying and actually not feel rushed, because then when you rush someone in an interview or in a conversation, you're only going to get a surface level answer anyway. And I think to go back to your first point, with him, something that's been really important is actually understanding the value that he is also bringing. So potentially with your example, why that individual didn't get subscribers on their channel, obviously it's different circumstantial, but potentially for them, they weren't actually were they adding any value as the interviewer? Because as he's personally, how I think he does it is that when he's asking a question and when he's having a conversation, he's also trying to ask, one, what he would like to know, and also what the viewer would like to know as well. So when we've had a few different politicians on, I know he's been thinking, okay, hang on a minute, what do people want to know? He's trying to get into the mindset of those people as well.
Especially the Matt.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, so it's actually understanding, okay, how do I to go? Because then actually are far more likely to subscribe, engage with that content, because they know when they come back next week, he's going to also ask them a question that you probably want to know as well. Like, he's not asking them like what's their favorite color. Like, he's asking them actually like things that actually something that you would genuinely want to know. So that's the value piece. I think potentially that individual wasn't giving them any value. So why would they stick around for her when she's not adding anything? The value is coming from the other person. It's not coming from her.
Just to add to that as well, so in brand strategy, one of the biggest things that we do with our clients is everybody thinks with their business, they understand who their audience is by identifying them. Male, female, this age, this income, basic what Facebook ads use. We call that demographics. If you understand your audience, you go into their habits, their lifestyle, what do they like, what do they want, but most importantly, their pain points. What is it that they really are struggling with? What is it their decision making is? What are their key questions? That's how you build a very connected brand. That's how you connect and engage with an audience. That's why I'm saying that example of Apple is they sell these dreams, they sell these scenarios, they explain these kind of things to make you buy into it. Same as Nike. Nike makes anybody feel like an athlete. Doesn't matter what background, doesn't matter what shape you are, doesn't matter what disability you are. they understand their audience's pain points and their decision making. All of these key things are key questions. So like that makes a lot of sense with you. So I just wanted to add on to that there to give further clarification. Cool. And yeah. I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to ping pong it. So yeah, go for it.
Hi, my name is Yashima, and my question is, how would you advise somebody who values privacy? Because I understand about personal branding and wanting to build your own brand, but for me, I don't particularly want my brand to be associated with me 100%. And I've seen, social media say separate the art from the artist. And if you look at Beyonce, she values her own privacy as well, but she will still post. So I kind of want your opinion on that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So again, the example I'll go back to is Steve. So if you go on his Instagram, there's no pictures of him with his girlfriend. There's no pictures of him with his nieces and nephews. There's no pictures of like what he's had for lunch. Like it's professional. It's like curated. So I think you can do it. I think you can do it in a clever way. You can. Again, it goes back to that value point. Like the two key metrics that we always use and I always have in the back of my head is it shareable and is it valuable? And by shareable, I mean, that can be funny. That can be, something that you send into a group chat on WhatsApp. It doesn't matter what it is, but actually you've got to know which one that you're going for. So I think, yes, personal brand is important, but also like you can define the word like personal. It depends what that means to you. If you feel comfortable with posting more of yourself, then go for it. But equally, if you don't, I think there are ways to do it where people can understand the person behind the brand without necessarily shouting about it from the rooftops. I think there's a way that you can curate it. Like when Steve does speaking engagements and things like that, he'll often kind of stick to certain topics. People aren't, like I said, aren't asking him about what he's having for lunch, like not devaluing what he's saying. He's just manipulating on what a personal brand means to him, and actually what he's putting out there is still personal because it's coming from him, but it's not like trivial content as well. It's always going to be personal because it's coming from you. You might be doing a post about your business or whatever, and you might actually not be in it, but it's still personal because it's kind of your experience, your words. So again, it depends how you define personal.
Also, just to add to that, think of the persona that you want to put out there. Just like sit with yourself and say, what part of me do I want to put out there? That's the easiest way to do it. And again, it's not to say that businesses and brands can't be built without the personal brand. We saw so many people that have built fantastic businesses. But if you're looking for the way, it's the big thing actually I didn't mention here is the generations, especially like Gen Z, the younger millennials and stuff. The biggest thing they actually value, though there's one, I don't have the data, but there is a report done that people are buying way more consciously now. Our parents, most of our parents, anybody with migrants, whatever, our parents, or even maybe still, would buy what was the cheapest and what was the easiest thing to get access of. Now we have options. We have the luxury of choosing. So now we also associate ourselves to certain brands, etc., etc. So because those options are there, because we have those kind of things, like it's not to say that brands can't be built without the personal brand, but especially now, people are wanting for that personal connection. They're craving for it more and more because they don't just want to buy from a big corporate brand or somebody else. So like that's the difference. So it's not that it can't be done, but it's almost like I'm not going to call it a hack, but it is a way of really speeding up that process, right? So yeah. I hope that maybe answered your questions to add to that. So at the back, sorry, yeah, go for it.
Hi, my name is Ari, podcaster of Ari Talks. I just wanted to ask you a question. What editing software does Stephen use for the Diary of a CEO?
So
did you sign an NDA? Joking.
Yeah. That's what I'm learning at the moment. I'm in the process obviously of starting. I'm not trying to.
Yeah. So Adobe. I think that's what the producer Jack uses, and the rest of the team would be Adobe. I can find out like more information for you, but I'm pretty certain the complete package is what they have. But Adobe has outperformed everything else. That's one I'd recommend from there. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. This side, yep, in the middle.
Hi. So you mentioned before that part of your job is to kind of like think like Steve with like how we communicate. I find that very interesting and like if you have like any techniques or resources to kind of like that you use to kind of like get into his mind and analyze and kind of like you.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. So I think I kind of met there was maybe 3, 4, 5 of us. There was really hardly anybody, and we were working from his apartment. So the podcast isn't what it is. It's still well known, but on a completely different scale now. So I had the luxury of being able to spend time with him. So I kind of was able to watch his mannerisms, how he speaks, things like that. And it is essentially you're understanding how this person talks. So obviously, if I don't understand that, I can't write as him. So that was a big thing for me. But also as well, the other kind of part to my job is also managing the clips process. So all the clips that you see on the channels, on his social channels, the editors will edit them, and then I'll comment, etc., approve, and whatever. So it all gets signed off by me. So the amount of clips I've seen of Steve talking is ridiculous. So to answer your question, it's just by listening to him all the time. So then you kind of understand, okay, there are some phrases that he would use, there are some phrases that potentially he wouldn't use, but also as well, like there's been a fair few times where he's kind of reached out and been like, don't think I'd phrase it like this, or can this be different? Of course it's going to happen because I'm not him, but equally at the same time, it's just by studying that person and actually it's hard, but trying to understand them as a person as well. So I'm very fortunate. We get on really well, which is really lovely, because if I didn't have that relationship, I wouldn't be able to do my job. So I think it's studying that person. I suppose it's a little bit of kind of like behavioural psychology behind it as well, because you're understanding how they speak and actually how they interact with other people. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
You're Steve's trained AI bot, basically.
Yeah, in a weird way.
Adam.
Hi, I'm Anu. I'm a nerdy rapper, and I'm actually looking to work with a social media manager. I'm in the process of hiring, so it's super useful to know what are the 3 most valuable roles to Steve.
Question.
The 3 most valuable roles to Steve. Throughout the whole of the podcast, or just his personal brand?
I would say more on the personal brand side.
So like 3 most valuable job roles.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
The things that you do.
I think, well, my role essentially, because if I don't post anything, nothing goes out. Firstly, but not only that as well, I think also this role's changed ever so slightly. But when I first started, Steve had a manager, and that's not to say that everybody needs that, but also as well, Dom still leans into more of like the event side. So when we go on tour and speaking engagements, different things like that. But the manager kind of point of view is that I suppose it's an extra level of protection between maybe a brand if they want to work with Steve, because Dom's the one that's buffering that. So in terms of being an important role, I would say it's super important, because he's, Steve obviously can think of things, he's got his own mind and he knows what he wants to do, but then Dom, when I first started kind of back in the day, was coming at it from more of like an objective point of view. So he will actually understand, okay, this is what he wants to, this is what Steve wants to achieve, this is where the year is going, or this is the next kind of 6 months. And actually then he, like I said, his role's changed a bit now, but back in the day, he would kind of more help him to get there. So it's actually that's not to say like everyone needs a manager, but equally that kind of role, whatever you define it as, is super important, because they can give you a different perspective that you often can't give yourself. So potentially if like a brand deal comes in or whatever, and you think it's really, really aligned, and then you have a different opinion, actually coming from like a bird's eye view point of view, that's super interesting to you, because actually you might have jumped on something. Unless you have that conversation with someone else, you're not going to know. So yeah, I mean, someone that is in charge of your personal brand and your social is huge, but also Dom's role in manager is really crucial. It's almost like to have that second voice as like a buffer, because you're human at the end of the day. Like, you are going to make mistakes, and he does as well. So you need to have somebody that actually is coming at it from a different angle and can tell you like when to step up and when to pull back.
Oh, that's great. And would you mind, it's a ridiculous to ask about it, follow-up?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so thank you so much, by the way. I realized about 5 seconds after I asked that, it's a horrible question. So thank you for answering it. And
Sorry?
secondly, like, in your role as a social media manager, if you were to kind of like strip it back and go back to when, I guess, imagine if it was a startup.
Yeah.
If you had to prioritize a small budget on like 3 individual roles, like,
Yeah.
what should we be spending our money on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, like I said, social media, like I said, whether that's a social media assistant, whether that's just someone that's like a creative intern, or someone to bounce ideas back and forth, because that's the other thing as well. You need, obviously, you need ideas if you're going to be posting anything. Like I said, someone potentially, like I said, not necessarily in a manager role, but someone actually that's looking at it more from maybe an operational side, that's maybe looking at potential brand deals, or maybe it's just looking at the future, essentially. Because when you as the individual are so in it kind of day to day, you need somebody else that actually can kind of paint a bigger picture and to try and help you get there. But then the third role, I would kind of say, is going to be different to everybody. You might be like amazing at websites or like email marketing or whatever, but then absolutely like crap at something else. So obviously that's the role that then you would need to fill. But I think it's going to be the 2 ones that I really would swear by is, like I said, having someone that can give you a different opinion and actually understands where you want to go as a person and as a brand and as a business as well. And then someone that's, like I was saying earlier, that's able to do the consistency thing for you, because you've still got to be posting, and like running everything else is a tough gig. So to have somebody else, whether that's like I said, an intern or a freelancer, or somebody that's just taking the load off a little bit, I think you'd actually find very helpful. But yeah, the third role, I would just seriously look at where your strengths lie and where perhaps you might need some help. There's actually a website, I'm sure you already know, called Fiverr. It's actually amazing. We use that a lot of the time to find different, freelancers, etc. And you can find some great people on there. If there's a gap in your company or your brand that you need to hire for.
That was great. Thank you so much.
Indy, we'll go at the back.
Hi everyone, my name is Rabil. I'm also a rapper, producer, sound engineer. The question I have, Holly, is when you're creating, or when your team is like deciding the content for Stephen, how much research do you do in other creatives, that are similar to Stephen, or other podcasts? And the reason I ask this is because many of us will have our own niches, our own companies. And when we're creating content, I feel like there's a fine balance between looking at what other people are doing, but also not doing that too much, because then it's like we're creating content that's exactly like that. But then also there's still things that other people do that will maybe be good to like kind of hop on, kind of like trends. So what's the kind of balance you have with the creating content?
Yeah, that's a good question. I honestly think like it's kind of when you look at trends, like everything is just repeating itself. There are very few things that are actually a brand new idea. A lot of it is just different iterations of things. So for an example that I can give, there was actually a creator, I can't remember his name now, on Instagram, and Steve sent it and was like, love what he's doing with his quotes. I love the actual asset. It looks great. It looks different. It looks something that we can. And I was like, okay, cool. But then I'm thinking, how can I iterate that? But it's still got to fit in with him. I don't want to copy somebody else. How can I take inspiration from it? So, for example, this creator, the font that he was using was like a handwritten font, almost like it was like he's literally written it. It probably hasn't. But then I kind of thought, okay, how can I experiment with handwritten fonts? Literally went onto Adobe, found different handwritten fonts, played about, see what looked nice visually speaking. Changed the background color so it wasn't a white like this creator, so it was like an off-white. changed the placements, changed how the text was aligned. So for Steve, I think it's a left align, and for this creator, it was center. So there's small tweaks that you can use. But if you look at a lot of other creators and different people that are out there, like I said, most things are a slight iteration on everything else. So you can take inspiration from it. I'd never say obviously like copy someone else and be that blatant about it. But I do think most things are out there. It's just how you manipulate it to suit you. So you can still take inspiration from something, but then take inspiration on one feature and took inspiration on handwritten font and just ignored everything else as like a test to see. And that kind of comes back to the experiment point. So you might use the handwritten font, but then you might take out everything else and do it your way. You might trial that. And then you might do another post and you remove the handwritten font and copy their background color. Because you don't actually know if it's a piece of content, there are so many different variables. So how on earth are you going to know how that's attracted the views that it's got? You're not going to. So that's why it kind of comes back to what creator's role does and experimenting itself, because actually you need to test different things to actually find out what works. And when you take the handwritten font example, perhaps it's not even the font altogether, perhaps it's the actual quote itself, like perhaps it's like the color of the background, perhaps it's the color of the font. So I hope that kind of answers your question, but I think you can take inspiration and manipulate it to how you would like, essentially.
We'll take one from this side and go waiting for a while. Right. Actually, on the end there, yep.
What would be the strategy for somebody to change or shift somebody's personal like brand identity? For example, I'm an engineer, been in engineer for 10 years, but then I started a beverage company. Not that I have aggressively built a brand myself, but then whatever I'm associated with is as an engineer. But then moving from that to say I have a beverage, and it's something I'm personally struggling.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. So something that I would say is, again, something that Steve always says, and it's actually really true in what he's saying, but he always kind of says that you don't need to pigeonhole yourself into one particular role in one particular industry. Like everybody is like multifaceted. Like obviously if you're coming from an engineer point of view, you might love other different elements. You might have hobbies that are completely different from what a stereotypical engineer is. So I think it's just starting to showcase that a little bit more. So showcasing, whether that is elements of the beverage company, whether that's elements of your hobbies, it's broadening your content a little bit more. So, if you're posting content that's just on engineering or whatever that may be, or your business is just engineering, then actually it's kind of like, okay, how can I push the barrier a little bit more? Maybe I'm posting more of a variety of things. Maybe actually my brand is widening out. Maybe there's, you'd normally do like a few posts per week. Perhaps you're doing a post now that's actually about something completely different. So I think it's just testing the waters. But I think also like there comes at a point where everybody's human. Like what you potentially liked 5 years ago is not going to be what you like now. I don't think people are expecting you to like that either. So I think, it's about looking at your objectives, and if you completely want to pivot from one thing to another, I would say the people that are obviously buying from you for a reason. So how can you kind of incorporate that of what you already have, but then also bring in those new customers as well. So does that answer your question? Yeah.
Right. From this side, you had in the middle, yeah. Go for it.
Hi. I wanted to ask you your personal opinion. How do you manage your relationships with people in general? Could be Stephen, could be clients, your colleagues, collaborators. How do you manage the relationship with people?
I think it's probably different for each different person or for each different stakeholder. Obviously, if you're coming at it from like a brand point of view, there are elements where obviously there's a contract and there's deals and there's things like that. So that also needs to be considered. But if you're kind of coming at it from a personal point of view, I always just treat Steve like a human. He's a person. Sometimes he's often right a lot of the times, and sometimes he's wrong. He's a normal person. So I never, potentially because when I started, he wasn't at the level that he's at now, but I never, sort of think about kind of the fame side of things as well, because ultimately, like I said, he is a person. So I always try to come at it from that human point of view. But I think relationships, particularly like work relationships or client relationships, take obviously time to build. And it's also working out actually if it's like a brand or if it's a client, etc. It's actually working out like how also they like to be treated as well. So I think it's a bit of a trial and error situation. But I think ultimately you have to kind of tailor yourself in a sense to who you're speaking to. Obviously there are things that, you might phrase something slightly differently with a brand, like potential brand deal or customer or, some other different stakeholders. But then if you're speaking to your manager or your employee, obviously you're going to be slightly different. But I always just come back to the human point of view, regardless of what position you're in. You are a human and you're going to make mistakes. So I always try and have that in my mind. And yeah, within reason, don't be afraid to question something. If something doesn't make sense, I'll always, again, it depends on the circumstance, but I'll always try and say it, because if you don't understand the reason why you're doing something, you're just not going to be able to do it properly. There's no shame in saying, I don't understand, or can you explain that? You actually need to have that to be able to do your job at a much better level. So yeah, I just try and take all the job titles off the table and just speak to them like a person, essentially.
Cool. I'm going to go one at the back and I'll come to you after, yeah?
Hi, thanks for all of the insight that you've really given so far. I'm building on some of the points that you've already made. It would be really interesting for me to understand is I'm kind of thinking as I've grown up, I've seen different types of advertising, different things that are making me purchase something. From the old Argos catalogs, door to door. That is where a brand comes to you, and now it's reels. It could be a 3-second video.
Yeah.
Where do you think within your experiments, what catches your eyes where you go, you know what? I don't want to jump on a trend, but we're going to try something where we think advertising go, where we think someone's going to go, wow, that's got my attention.
Yeah.
I'm stopping the conversation. Have you seen this? Where do you kind of see that vision for getting people's attention in the next 5 to 10 years?
It was really interesting. It's a really good question. I think in terms of attention, I think brands that do it really well are playing around with the copy. Like I've seen so many different things from BA on the tubes where actually they're playing around with the copy and they're making it more humorous or they're making it more satire. I think it's coming back to the point about personal branding and brand building. Forgetting the personal brand side of things, if you've got a brand, it's humanizing it and adding more of that personality behind it. It's trying to craft actually a person, whether that's like Colgate, for example, trying to craft like a personality for that brand. So I think that's really important. And I think, again, people will lean towards that because, again, it's like that human connection. It's that feeling that you're buying. So even if you don't work for a person, like I said, how can you create that feeling and actually that traction with a brand?
Yeah.
I think that's really important. I also think like communities are just going to be huge if they're not already. So WhatsApp channels, again, communities, Instagram broadcast channels. It's those pockets of people that actually, Telegram's a great one that you're going to lean on, that are actually your core audience. And I think brands that are adapting to that will really hit the ground running because they'll really understand. Like, for example, Steve has an Instagram broadcast channel and he has Telegram as well. And the Telegram community is quite literally a selection of people, I think it's potentially on 20,000 now, it's around that figure, but essentially it's those people that actually have been following him from like the first go. They know everything, they are such kind of like diehard, fans, etc., however you want to phrase it, but that community is so powerful. So we really use that community, whether we've got, a YouTube video coming out and we want their opinion, whether he wants an opinion on a product, whether he wants an opinion on the next podcast or whatever. So I think nurturing that community, and also as well having a following and having a community, I always think is not the same thing. Like you can still have a like mass following and actually have no community. So it's about nurturing that, and I think it's about, it doesn't necessarily matter the volume, but actually having that set community, I think is going to be really, really powerful, particularly for the big brands that actually have loads of customers, but do they have a community? Like Zara has loads of customers, but do they have a community? I don't think so. So that, you know, you have to kind of find what works for you in that space. But yeah, like I said, community, and also really, really like leaning into like humanizing your brand, I think completely huge.
Really good point, Roger. Just to add into that as well, the biggest thing, like we worked with this with one of our clients, ads, campaigns, any marketing, any form of marketing, you can get everything right in the marketing. So what Oliver is really talking about is the brand experience that your brand in a company, whether it's a corporate company, whether it's a small business, whether it's a personal brand, that experience you create after, whether it's a community engagement, how can you get more personal with the people that you're serving? So much to a point that they become brand loyal fans.
Yeah.
They won't leave you, whatever you do, whatever you change, they won't leave you, they'll be by your side. And that's the trick of the trade. And that's why brand has become a big thing. And it's not just about who's the biggest company anymore. Like Zara has loads of customers, but do they have a community? Tomorrow Zara goes bust. Do you think many people, some people might cry, but do you think a lot of people will be crying? They'll just go to the next fast fashion shop.
Yeah.
Simple. But God forbid, Stephen Bartlett, you know, gets taken down from YouTube, whatever, there'll be a lot of people that are really upset about it. And they will fight. They will sign petitions. They will do whatever it is to get his channel back. That's the difference, right? And my big belief is, it doesn't matter what company you have, every business can do that, because every business creates value for their customers. So leverage that, and that's a big thing. That's how ads become successful. I've seen some of the best ads, best copies, whatever, and they get flat results, because it's about what does that person, individual person, we're not talking about like, you know, mass level, we're talking about micro, granular, each individual person, what journey is it that they go through with your brand at every single point. That then obviously backwards tracks makes the ad successful, in essence, or whatever it is. Yeah, cool. I'm gonna go, here, so we've been waiting.
Hello, Gabriel here. You were telling us earlier about how your job is not just to put things on social media, but really understanding Stephen and how he thinks. So I'm very curious to understand what got you into the social media journey, and what skills helped you the most before you started this role. I mean, in your early career.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I kind of just fell into social media. So I did a marketing degree, and I didn't really know what avenue I particularly wanted to go down. But then when I was learning at the time that social media was just kind of, it was around, but people weren't really maximizing on it at all. And so I was kind of like, okay, this seems interesting. And it kind of just fell into it. It was kind of just a pattern, essentially. And I wasn't kind of really mapping out, this is necessarily where I want my career to go. I just kind of follow what I'm interested in. And also, again, like removing the social media part of it as well, I would never work for a brand or for a company or for a person that I didn't actually really believe in. So if you remove the social media, do I like what Steve stands for, and do I like believe in what his service and in the podcast? The answer is yes. So actually it's less about social media, and it's more about, that's just the method that I'm helping to kind of spread the message, essentially. That's just like the vehicle that I'm using. And then a skill that I think is really important, honestly, is communication. Like so important, whether that is communicating on exactly what he needs to see from a certain post, what he doesn't want to see, what works really well. Like me kind of saying, actually, it works better when we do this, it works better when we don't do this. It's just having that open and honest communication, because ultimately it's not my personal brand that I'm working for, it's his. So I need to have that open communication with him, and I need to kind of be able to be honest and upfront with him as well. And yeah, I think when you're working for a person, it's very different because, like I said, it's their interests that actually is kind of on the line. Like I can't curate what he's interested in. That is just what he's interested in, and that is what his opinion is. So it's sort of like, okay, if he wants to speak about this, or if this is actually perhaps where his personal brand is going, where his journey is going, like, do I completely understand that? Do I have any questions? What are my thoughts on that? It's just having that open and honest conversation with him so that actually I can do my job better and I can understand, because there's no way for me to know unless I ask the questions. So yeah, like communication, definitely key.
We'll take last 2 questions and then we'll wrap up. Anybody who hasn't answered a question yet? Yeah, go for it.
So my name is Manuel, and I have a series of questions. So my first would be, how did you come to work with Steve? Why did you choose to work with Steve? What are your long-term goals, and is that continuing to work with Steve? And how are you? Steve.
He's starting a podcast.
And what is your personal brand, and how are you building that under work whilst building Steve's? Yeah. 4 questions.
Fine.
If you need to repeat them,
I'll bill you the charge for the extra hour. Yeah.
No, all makes sense. So previously I was at L'Oreal, so very, very, very corporate company. Didn't like it, to be honest. I learned so much, but it taught me what I liked and what I didn't like, which unless I did it, I just simply wouldn't know. And for me, working in social media and being creative, you need to be able to react quickly. And I simply could not react quickly working in that environment, because how it traditionally works is with massive corporate companies, there's obviously a lot of red tape and there's a lot of things that I have to get checked off. So if I wanted to do something, I then have to ask my manager, who would then have to ask their manager. And for social media, it just really can't work like that. It's really impossible to do it like that. And I hope it changes in the future, but unfortunately, with a lot of those big brands, you have to get clearance at that point. Normally the moment has gone and normally the landscape has changed. So for me, when I left that role, I was kind of like, okay, it's taught me a lot and I've learned a lot and it's been a valuable experience, but it's taught me what I really don't like about something. And so I literally was like, okay, I will leave where I was. And actually the 2 big things for me that I wanted, it was autonomy and trust. And Steve has been great in both those things. And like I said, gives me so much trust in posting as him. And, you know, I've been lucky. He's never had to check a post. He doesn't approve the post. He's never approved it. So it's an element of trust and actually autonomy that then he gives me. So then I'm taking more pride in my work. Whereas if someone is spoon feeding you and micromanaging you, you're not really going to care as much, because you know if there's a mistake, well, they're probably going to check it and they're just going to edit it anyway. Well, I don't have that. So if I make a mistake, of course you are going to make a mistake, but that's on me to check my work before I send it out. So yeah, and then I found the job on LinkedIn. I had no idea who Steve was. I had no idea about the podcast. My sister just said, this sounds quite cool. And I was like, yeah, okay. No idea at all. And I think that's really helped me, because I didn't know. So I was able to kind of look at it more objectively. But yeah, I think, what was the third question? I can't remember.
He said, where do you want to go? Where do you,
How you can build your own personal
brand.
brand.
There you go. Listen.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks. Okay, perfect. Yeah, like I said, the business has changed so much, and it is going to change next year, and it's probably going to change in the next 3 to 6 months, even shorter amount of time. So I just go by, do I enjoy the people that I'm working with, and am I happy? Like, do I actually want, like, after holiday, do I actually want to go back to work? And I'm very fortunate the answer is normally yes. So unless that changes, but right now it's not, and I genuinely, we have such a lovely group of people that we work with, and that makes the job completely different. So something that's really, really crucial for me. And then my own personal brand, to be honest, because I spend so much time building Steve's, there is little in the pot for mine. And when I've been on social media all day and when this is my job, I really don't want to then switch on and do my own stuff. But it's something that I'm learning that you do have to do for all the reasons I've obviously mentioned, and where it's been able to help Steve grow as much as it has. So I think it's just time, honestly, because it does take time. But I think that's where I kind of said at the start of the talk, where I have to kind of switch off my phone or have those boundaries so that I can still think. So actually, I wouldn't be able to be on 24/7. It's just not how my brain works. So yeah, I think it's a tough one when you work in social, because like I said, the last thing you want to do is then go on your own social account. You just don't want to do that. So you've got to either be a little bit strict with yourself or actually just be realistic in the sense of what you want to do. And perhaps for you, that is just posting once a week on LinkedIn. Like, that's fine. That's better than nothing. But I think social media can be depleting and it can take a lot out of you. So actually you need to make sure that you're filling yourself back up again. And like I said, for me, that is switching my phone off and like being at home and doing whatever I need to do to like replenish myself. Some people are fine. Some people can be on all the time, and that's how they work. But yeah, for me, I'm a little bit different. So yeah, I'm learning to try and do that more.
Cool. Awesome. Round of applause for Holly, please. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, I learned so much from that. It's crazy. So, like, the amount of value you give, massive thank you. Round of applause for Holly. Wicked. So, we're going to wrap up. The last couple of things I'm going to just go through. You feel free to take a seat now there. All done. So, we'll do this one. Remember, we're attached.
Yeah,
now.
I forgot about that. Yeah, you carry on and I'll just unhook myself.
No worries. So we'll do a group photo in a second. There's also Zach, if you just make yourself known. Zach there. Anybody would like to just give a testimony of how you found the event? Just quick couple of seconds. Zach's a man. That would be massively helpful for us for bringing on more great guests like this as well. But we've got another superstar in the room that I want to introduce to you. Quick introduction. So Natalia is here from Natalka Design. She is. I'm going to get her to do her own intro in a second. But she's a massive superstar. We only met recently. Anybody knows Christo at one of Christo's events. She's a visual storyteller, and to make this very, very simple for everybody, she goes to events and takes these kind of scribes these sketch notes. It's all visual, and it's another way. I'm a huge visual learner. I was rubbish at school because I couldn't do textbooks, but I learned everything through visuals. So when I came across Natalia's work, it absolutely blew me away. She's very, very kindly done one for today, and you're going to show us? Yeah. Come up. Wow. We need you to come up. Look at this. Wow. And please give us an introduction. A full it from you.
I sent it to you, so you can, if you have a second, you can show.
Where did you send it to me?
To email and to your WhatsApp.
Okay, cool.
But it's here on an iPad, and I'll send it to you guys. Yeah, thank you so much, by the way. That was amazing. Mini version. This was brilliant. So whenever there's an interesting conversation and insights, that's where we are. So thank you so much for having us. Kiki, thank you as well. Very quickly, I run a company called Natalka Design, 12 years now, and what we do is we storytell in visuals, and that execution can be anything from projections to VR, AR, infographics, animation. It really doesn't matter. What matters is the story and problem solving through. So kind of that's today I was like, I definitely want to be here. Met Steve actually a few times. We scribed his talks a few times now.
Yeah, it looks familiar.
Yeah, so I just thought for my even personal selfish reasons, I want to learn from interesting people like Holly, and I bet Kiki's going to be nice and send it to everyone, right?
That is, oh yeah, please do. Come on!
Along with the group photo in the corner.
Yeah, that is amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody wants to grab Natalia after, please do. So that is a wrap for everything. Let me just quickly go back to where I was. Oh, it's not right there. Yeah, cool. That's a wrap. Anybody wants to, any socials, etc. Oh no, wrong one. Anyone wants to connect to Holly or myself on the socials, feel free to scan the code. But that's it pretty much. I hope you enjoyed the event. I hope you found it very, very valuable. Please, if you did find it valuable, feel free to come to the next one. I think we're going to schedule the next one for the end of February, beginning of March. So keep an eye on the dates. And yeah, pretty much. Anybody that wants to do a group photo, I know not everybody wants to be in this call. If you don't, no problem. If you do, just go to the back of the room. We'll get a group photo of Holly, and then we'll put a date. And anybody wants to do internal testimonies after that, most welcome to. So thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody want this group photo? Come to the back.
So anyway, we're just gonna go chat I'll send it to you.
Outside Bella? Okay, come on. Hang on, let's see that. Oh, don't worry, there's loads of comments on that everywhere. It's about getting everybody in first. Let's see your blood. Outside, outside,
Yeah, I don't think that was everything else. No. You're not asking on gift.
No, exactly. No, that's.
I'll still finish meeting. It's still a long way. You said you signed one for that. I'll keep my head.
It's just a slideshow.
Something.
I thought it was Jamie.
It was him, yeah.
Do you guys like what do you guys do then? Like transcribe it. Wait a minute, I'm there. What's you want to go to Facebook?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.